Chapter 12. My Lord dictates a letter and receives a visitor. Part 2 of Black Moth by Georgette Heyer. Read for LibriVox.org into the public domain. It was not until late that afternoon that O'Hara arrived, and he was conducted, after a brief conversation with Diana and her father, to my lord's room, where Miss Betty received him with her cheery smile and jerky curtsy. "You'll not excite Mr. Carr?" she said, but was interrupted by my lord's voice from within, weak but very gay. "Come in, Miles, and never listen to Miss Betty. She is a tyrant, and denies me my wig." O'Hara laughed in answer to Miss Betty's quizzical smile, and strode over to the bed. He gripped my lord's thin hand, and frowned down at him with an assumption of anger. "Young good-for-naught! Could ye not find nought better than to smash yourself up, and well-nigh drive your man crazy with fright? Oh, pshaw! Did you find Jim?" O'Hara looked round and saw that Miss Betty had discreetly vanished. He sat gingerly down at the edge of the bed. "Ay, I took the mare over as soon as I had your letter, and a fine scare you gave me, Jack, I can tell you. She recognised him, and I accosted him." "I'll swear you did not get much satisfaction from Jim," said my lord. "Did he look very foolish?" "To tell you the truth, I thought the man was half daft, and I wondered whether I'd been after making a mistake. But in the end I got him to believe what I was trying to tell him, and he has taken the mare, and will bring your baggage along this evening. By the way, John, I told him of our little meeting, and of your pistols being unloaded. He said 'twas his fault, and you never saw aught to touch his face. Put out was not the word for it." "I suppose so. Look here, Miles, this is a damned funny affair." "What happened to you, exactly?" "'Tis what I'm about to tell you. After I had left you I rode on quite quietly for about an hour, and then came upon Miss Bowley's coach stopped by 3 blackguards who were trying to drag her to another coach belonging to the gentleman who conducted the affair. So of course I dismounted, and went to see what was to be done." "You would be after poking your nose into what didn't concern you. 4 men, and you had the audacity to tackle them all. 'Tis mad you are entirely." "Of course, if you had been in my place you would have ridden off in the other direction, or aided the scoundrels?" was the scathing reply. O'Hara chuckled. "Well, go on, Jack. I'm not saying I don't wish I hadn't been with you. 'Twould have been superb. I suppose Miss Bowley has told you most of the tale, but there is one thing that she could not have told you, for she did not know it. The man I fought with was Belmanoir." "Thunder and turf! Not the Duke?" "Yes, Tracy." "Zounds! Did he know ye?" "I cannot be certain. I was masked, of course, but he said he thought he did. 'Twas at that moment he fired his pistol at me." "The dirty scoundrel!" Yes. 'Tis that which makes me think he did not know me. Damn it all, Miles, even Tracy would not do a thing like that." "Would he not? If you ask me, I say that Tracy is game enough for any kind of devilry." "But, my dear fellow, that is too black. He could not try to kill in cold blood a man he had hunted with and fenced with, and no man could." O'Hara looked extremely sceptical. "Because you could not yourself, is not to say that a miserable spalpeen like Belmanoir could not." "I don't believe it of him. We were always quite friendly. If it had been Robert now—but I'm not going to believe it. And don't say anything to these people, O'Hara, because they do not know devil. I gather from what Miss Betty says, that he calls himself Everard. He met the girl, Diana, at Bath. You know his way. She'd none of him, hence the abduction." "Heavens, but 'tis a foul mind the man's got." "Where women are concerned, yes. Otherwise, 'tis not such a bad fellow, Miles." "I've no use for that kind of dirt myself, Jack." "Oh, I don't know. I dare say we are none of us exactly saints." He changed the subject abruptly. "How is Jenny?" "Rather off her feed. Missing you, I expect. I left her with your man. He should be arriving soon, I should think. I don't fancy he'll waste much time." "Neither do I. Poor fellow, he must have worried terribly over this worthless master." "Sure his face was white as your own when I told him you were wounded." Carstairs turned his head quickly. "What's this about my face? Just be so kind as to hand me that mirror, Miles." O'Hara laughed and obeyed, watching my lord's close scrutiny of his countenance with some surprise. "Interesting pallor, my dear friend, interesting pallor. Nevertheless, I am glad that Jim is on his way." He met O'Hara's eyes as he looked up, and his lips quivered irrepressibly. "You think me very vain, Miles?" "Is it a pose of yours, John? Is it Sir Anthony Ferndale, Bart?" "No, I believe it is myself. You see, when one has but oneself to live for, and think for, one makes the most of oneself. Hence my vanity. Take away the mirror, please. The sight of my countenance offends me." "Sure, you're free with your orders, my lord," said O'Hara, putting the glass down on the table. "And while I think of it, what might your name be now?" "John Carr. A slip of the tongue on my part, stopped in time. I hear my mentor returning, and Miles—" "Well?" "Come again." "Come again? My dear boy, you'll be sick of the sight of me soon. I shall be here every day." "Thanks. It will take a good deal to sicken me, I think." He bit his lip, turning his head away as Miss Betty came into the room. "I'm afraid that you ought to leave my patient now, Sir Miles," she said. "He has had enough excitement for one day, and should sleep." She glanced at the averted head inquiringly. "I doubt he is tired?" Jack turned and smiled at her. "No, Miss Betty, I'm not. But I know you will refuse to believe me." "My dear boy, do you know you have black lines beneath your eyes?" "More remarks about my face." He sighed, and glanced at O'Hara, who had risen. "You are quite right, Miss Bowley. I must go. May I come again to-morrow?" "Surely," she beamed. "We shall be delighted to see you." O'Hara bent over the bed. "Then au revoir, Jack. My lady sent her love to cousin Harry, the saucy puss." "Did she? How prodigious kind of her, Miles! And you'll give her mine, and kiss her?" "Yes," said O'Hara, with dangerous calm. "I'll kiss her what?" "Her hand for me," ended Carstairs, bubbling over. "Good bye, and thank you." "That will suffice," said Miles, cutting him short. He bowed to Miss Betty and left the room. The business-like little lady fluttered over to the bedside and rearranged the pillows. "Well, and are you satisfied?" "Madam, most extraordinarily so, I thank you. I shall be getting up soon." "H'm," was all she vouchsafed, and left him to his meditations. As she had foreseen, he dozed a little, but his shoulder would not allow him to sleep. He lay in a semi-comatose condition, his eyes shut, and a deep furrow telling of pain between his brows. The sound of a shutting door made him open his eyes. He turned his head slightly and saw that Jim Salter was standing in the middle of the room, looking at him anxiously. My lord returned his gaze crossly, and Jim waited for the storm to break. Carstairs's heart melted, and he managed to smile. "I'm monstrous glad to see you, Jim," he said. You can't mean that, sir. 'Twas I left your pistols unloaded." "I know. Damned careless of you, but it's the sort of thing I should do myself, after all." Jim advanced to the bedside. "Do you mean you forgive me, sir?" "Why, of course. I could not have fired on my best friend in any case." "No, sir, but that don't make it any better." "It doesn't, of course, and I was rather annoyed at the time. Oh, devil take you, Jim, don't look at me like that. I'm not dead yet." If you had been killed, sir, 'twould have been my fault." "Rubbish! I'd had a sword, hadn't I? For heaven's sake, don't worry about it any more. Have you brought all my baggage?" "Yes, sir. It shan't occur again, sir." "Certainly not. Is Jenny well?" "Splendid, sir. Will you trust me with your pistol, sir?" Carstairs groaned. "Will you have done? 'Twas an accident, and I've forgotten it. Here's my hand on it." He grasped Jim's as he spoke, and seemed to brush the whole subject aside. "Have you disposed of that horrible coat you tried to make me wear the other day?" "I gave it to the landlord, sir." "I should have burned it, but perhaps he liked it." "He did, sir. Will you try to go to sleep now?" "If you had a shoulder on fire and aching as mine does, you wouldn't ask such a ridiculous question," answered Jack, snappishly. "I'm sorry, sir. Is there aught I can do?" "You can change the bandages if you like. These are prodigious hot and uncomfortable." Without another word Salter set about easing his master, and he was so painstaking and careful not to hurt the ugly wound, and his face expressed so much concern, that Carstairs controlled a desire to swear when he happened to touch a particularly tender spot, and at the end rewarded him with a smile and a sigh of content. "That is much better," he said. "You have such a light touch, Jim." The man's face reddened with pleasure, but he said nothing, and walked away to the window to draw the curtains. Chapter 12. Read by Sibylla Denton. For more free audiobooks or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org.